Last week we took a little sidetrack from the football talk and got into some hoops stuff, even though there hadn't been any Pitt basketball played yet. And the Pitt football team, of course, was coming off that win at Florida State, and there was plenty to talk about in that regard. But we had a chance to talk to Jeff Capel last week, and so I figured that'd be a good opportunity to dig into some Pitt basketball talk. Well, since then, not only have we had a chance to talk to Jeff Capel and a few of the players again, but we actually got to see the Pitt basketball team play. The Panthers took on Providence in an exhibition game on Sunday afternoon at the Peterson Event Center. They won that game 81-74. It's debatable. I mean, a game is a game. Providence head coach Kim English said, you want to approach it like a scrimmage and work on things and do this and that, but then you get a crowd there and it gets loud and you start really just wanting to win. And so I think for these coaches, balancing the desire to win with the desire to try different things and get better in certain areas and get a better sense of where you stand in certain areas, there's probably a bit of a push and pull there. And I don't know where you would come down on it on each side. Jeff Capel said he didn't come up with a starting lineup until Sunday morning. Said the players didn't know who was starting and that he would even start a different lineup, in the second half just to mix it up. And he certainly did that. Pitt used a lot of lineup combinations, put a lot of guys out there on the court, used a lot of guys in a lot of different ways and got a lot of minutes for a lot of different guys, trying to find out what they've got, because that first time you play against another team, a real team, things can look a little bit differently. Certainly a lot of teaching points for the Panthers in that game. And I think a lot of lessons learned for the coaches as well about who they have, what they can do, and what they might want this team to be. Although I doubt that it really changed many perceptions for the Pitt coaching staff about who this team was. And to be honest, it didn't really change much in the way of perceptions that I have about this team. But let's talk about it. What we saw to the Pitt basketball team in that exhibition game against Providence. I've got some thoughts. I suspect you do as well. Let's talk about Pitt basketball, Pitt Providence, the exhibition game, and kind of where we think this team is after one exhibition game with one more to go before the start of the regular season. Here on the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You guys usually complain when I do too long of a preamble there, when I put the ramble and preamble, but that one I was actually talking about things. I wasn't just sort of rambling on and telling you to like and subscribe and go visit the website, Panther-Lair.com, because it's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. I wasn't talking about how we cover Pitt football and basketball and recruiting in the transfer portal. I wasn't going on and on about how great the message boards are, and it's the best place to hang out with other Pitt fans, that just all day, every day Pitt fans are on there talking about Pitt sports. And that if you want to talk with other Pitt fans, and I didn't tell you this, but if you want to talk with other Pitt fans, it really is the best place to do it. But I held all that back. I didn't go into all that. I wasn't trying to waste all your time talking about the website. I talk about how I want you to like and subscribe, and how we have a live stream every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. at a post-game show after the football games. I didn't do all of that stuff, all right? It was a substantial, content-heavy intro to the episode, and I'm not going to waste your time talking about all those things, but I will ask you to like and subscribe. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. So Pitt beats Providence 81-74. Providence, I think, is a pretty decent team. They should be a decent team in the Big East. Saw something that Rick Pitino and Dan Hurley were talking about how Providence seems like they're really improved and they're going to be a much better team. I think they've got some talented players. They've got Duncan Powell, the transfer from Georgia Tech, who scored 26 points at the Peterson Event Center last year, playing for the Yellow Jackets. He scored 17 against Pitt, 4 of 8 from 3, 6 of 13 from the field. Overall, Providence 8 of 26 from three-point range is about 30%. It felt like they were making more. It seemed like early on they were going to make more, but Pitt was able to get some of that defense under control. And one of the biggest things Jeff Capel talked about after the game was that he felt like Pitt's transition defense wasn't good in the early going, and that's a big part of how Providence jumped out to 4 minutes in, I think at the first media timeout, Pitt was down 10 points. It was 16-6. And, about a minute later, it was 18-6, excuse me. And Pitt was down 12. Now, they end the first half with Pitt leading 41-31. So Providence scored 18 points in the first 5 minutes and only 13 points in the final 15 minutes of the first half. And that's a big credit to Pitt's improved defense as the game went on. And that's probably as good a place to start as any, because when we think about our perceptions of this Pitt basketball team in 2025-26, I mean, I think there are probably a lot of ways we would define it, a lot of things we would think about it, or a lot of things we're expecting it to be. And one is being a better defensive team than they've been in the past and being more committed to defense than they've been in the past. And I think in that exhibition game, you saw some of that, whether it was adjusting their transition defense to force Providence to have to run more in the half court rather than just getting out and going up the court and getting easy buckets. Once they were able to do that, I think they played pretty well in the half-court defense. They held Providence under 40% shooting in the game, 30% shooting from three, and like I say, 31 points in the first half. That's pretty good. I keep joking that, and maybe not joking, but I keep joking that this Pitt basketball team is going to feel like, or wants to feel like some of those early Ben Howland, Jamie Dixon teams that tries to hold you under 64 points. Well, if you only give up 31 in the first half, you're kind of doing that, right? They did give up 43 points in the second half. Providence shot better. They were 42% from the floor in the second half, 4 of 12 from three. Still some decent three-point defense there. But I think, and again, everything I'll probably offer this caveat like 60,000 times over the course of these over the course of this episode. But I mean, you take everything with a grain of salt with the fact that it was an exhibition game. But I do think you saw some desire or even just interest in playing defense from this Pitt team. And that was something that you wouldn't always say was the case last year. I don't think you always saw desire to play defense. I don't think you always saw an interest in playing defense. You saw a team that would often get lazy on defense. I mean, we talked about, Zach Austin was their best defender, but he had blocks. He had those big sort of splashy plays, but on a consistent sort of possession-to-possession defense in the half court, I don't think they had a lot of great defensive presence and a lot of players who were all that committed to doing it. This year's team looks a little bit more committed, and I think that starts with DeMarco Minor. I think he's the first guy. He's the leader of this team, the transfer point guard from Oregon State. He ended up playing 34 minutes. He got hurt at one point and had to come out, but I think he only missed one substitution in the second half. He played almost the entire second half. Shot 4 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 3 from 3, 6 of 7 from the free throw line. He had 15 points and 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal, no turnovers. Very decent, solid game. If you get 15 points from DeMarco Minor on 50% shooting from the floor every night, you're going to be in good shape. Because I don't think that's really going to be his game. I don't think he's going to be a guy who makes threes all that often. I think he's made 43-pointers once in his career before transferring to Pitt, and he hit 40 right on the nose. The other 2 years he hit, I think, 33 and 31. And so he's not a prolific three-point shooter, and this is something that we'll end up saying about a lot of this team, I think. But what he is he's a good facilitator. I think he can run the offense. He can get guys moving, and he can get into his teammates. One of the most interesting things that I thought came out of Sunday's game, and we've got the video right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, because DeMarco Minor was one of the guys who came in and talked about it. But one of the most interesting things is I asked DeMarco Minor, what kind of role have you assumed? And he said, well, honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out what my role is here. And he went on to say that a big part of figuring it out is kind of understanding who his teammates are and building those relationships. And effectively what he was saying is he had to figure out what buttons to push. That he might turn to Brandon Cummings, and Brandon Cummings might need a different kind of motivation than Noyes Indrisitis, or Amari Witherspoon might need a different kind of talking to than Barry Dunning Jr. It's just if you have kids, this, right? Every person has a different personality, and they're each going to respond to different forms of motivation. And coaches spend their whole careers trying to figure these things out. And DeMarco Minor's taking that same sort of approach. And I think you could see it on the court. You saw him talking to his teammates a lot. Sometimes it was a little more animated, and sometimes he was a little bit more calm, and maybe that was dictated by the situation, but maybe it was dictated by the players he was talking to. DeMarco Minor is the leader of this team, and we heard it throughout the summer. We heard it throughout the offseason that he was kind of asserting himself in the locker room in a way that maybe nobody really did last year. Like, I think Ishmael Leggett was a great player. I think he was a great leader for this team, but he was not the kind of guy who was going to whip other guys into shape in the locker room. That's just not who he was as a person. Like, personality-wise, that wasn't Ishmael Leggett. And Jalen Lowe wasn't going to do it, and they really didn't have that guy. Zach Austin wasn't – I don't think Zach Austin had the sort of capital to do it, although I think if anybody had really spoken up, it probably would have gotten through. Jamarius Burton, I think of him a couple years ago, that NCAA tournament team really becoming a prominent voice in the locker room. Now, part of the problem was that the year before, nobody would listen to him, so we just stopped talking. But that NCAA tournament team with him and Nelly Cummings, they would get into their teammates. And I think that's what DeMarco Minor is bringing to this team is that sort of assertiveness, borderline aggressiveness, and ultimately manifesting as leadership. But part of it, and I think this was the really mature thing that he said, is figuring out what buttons to push with each of your teammates. Now, I know that there's at least one person and probably more who's sitting back there saying, Chris, I don't care about how DeMarco Minor talks to his teammates. Can he help them win? And that remains to be seen, right? All of this is just speculation based off of one exhibition game and what the players and coaches are saying. But I do think it'll be a net positive to have DeMarco Minor on this team. I think he'll be a good defender. I think he'll be a good point guard. And I think he'll do a good job leading this team and also helping to mentor some of the younger guys like Brandon Cummings or Amari Witherspoon or Makari Moore, and helping to mentor them of how to develop their own leadership styles. If this is a transition year for Pitt of, getting from this current incarnation into whatever they're going to be next year, and if ideally you have Amari Witherspoon and Brandon Cummings and Noyes Andrositis and Makari Moore back with Caleb Foster and Jamal Jones and these guys coming in, like, wow, there's a chance to be pretty good, right? I think that potential is out there, and it could be, you could have sort of a lasting residual effect of DeMarco Minor mentoring these younger guys that they can carry into next year's team. Now, look at us. One exhibition game, and we're already talking about what Pitt's going to be like next season. But I think that's a not unimportant side of what DeMarco Minor brings. I also think he's a good defensive guard, and I think you saw a number of guys kind of play well defensively in that game and on Sunday. And the reality is they're going to have to, because I just don't think they're going to be a great scoring team. And I'm sitting here saying this after they scored 81 points against a team from the Big East, but I just don't think they're going to be a great scoring team. 3 of 15 from 3 kind of feels like maybe that's what they are. And that's who they're going to be. And, I think other people have pointed it out. It's to Pitt's credit that they only took 15 3-pointers. Understanding their limitations and understanding what they should and shouldn't be doing. I'm trying to look. Noyes Andrositis shot 4 3-pointers. DeMarco Minor attempted 3. Roman Cialepa shot 2. Barry Dunning Jr. shot 2, and Makari Moore shot 2. Brandon Cummings only attempted 1 from deep. I kind of think Cummings is probably going to be their best shooter, unless Noyes Andrositis steps up. Noyes has the background. He has the history, although he really didn't do it at Iowa State in his limited opportunity. But he's got a bit of a pedigree as a shooter. I think Andrositis and Cummings are probably going to be your top 3-point shooters on this team. But I don't really know what the ceiling is for those guys individually. And B, if they are the top shooters, then the rest of the team is really not going to provide a lot in that regard. I could end up being completely wrong, and Roman Cialepa makes 45 threes this year, and Cam Corrin chips in 25, and Barry Dunning Jr. finds how we did those like sort of statistical gymnastics. If you look at his last 12 games or whatever it was, he shot 42% from 3 or something. Maybe he carries it over and all of that happens, but it's a lot of projection, which is something I asked Jeff Capel over the summer when we got a chance to talk to him. I was like, don't you feel like you're relying a lot on sort of projection, and maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen? And he said, yeah, they are. Which, I mean, maybe to some extent in the transfer portal area, you're going to do a lot of that. But I just don't think they're going to be a great shooting team from outside. And by extension, I don't think they're going to be a great scoring team. And so they're going to have to play well defensively. And there was something I saw on Sunday that really changes my mind about that. Somebody asked on the message boards yesterday, after watching the scrimmage or watching the exhibition game, did you feel better or worse about this team than you did before watching it? And mostly the same. On the big overall points about this team, that I think they'll be a little bit better defensively. I think they'll be better rebounding than they were a year ago, although they got out-rebounded by Providence by 5. And Jeff Capel said, I think Jeff Capel was almost glad they got out-rebounded because it seems like he wasn't all that pleased with the team's rebounding effort in practice. Because he said something after the game like, now maybe they'll actually get it. Maybe they'll understand how much they have to do to get better at rebounding and how important it is now that they got out-rebounded in this game. But I think they'll be better defensively and rebounding-wise than they were a year ago. I don't think they'll be as good offensively as they were a year ago. And I think they're going to have to score in different ways. And so I thought that before the exhibition game. I thought that during the exhibition game. And I'm thinking that after the exhibition game. In terms of individuals, I think there are a few things that maybe my opinion changed a little bit on. Or it maybe didn't change my opinion, but maybe ran counter to what I was expecting. And at the top of that list is Barry Dunning Jr. 2 of 4 from the floor, 4 points scored, 0 of 2 from 3. I thought Barry Dunning Jr. was going to come in and be an offensive creator. And he still might be. It's one exhibition game. It's one exhibition game. So he might go out and average 17 points per game and create his own shots and do a good job with all that. But he wasn't a factor on Sunday. He just felt like he disappeared despite playing 21 minutes in this game. He just wasn't a factor. He didn't have the kind of offensive energy I expected to see out of him. The guy who did have that offensive energy was Amari Witherspoon, the freshman who I think he might have played 1 through 5 technically. I mean, there were points definitely where he was running the point. Obviously he played the 2-3. I saw him, playing the 4. And there was a time when they had their lineup at the end of the game. This is all the lineups, by the way. They used 22 unique lineups over the course of 28 substitutions. That probably won't be the case in every game, but the last 2 substitutions, they had DeMarco Minor, Brandon Cummings, Noyes Indrusitis. First, they had Barry Dunning Jr. with Amari Witherspoon, and then they replaced Barry Dunning Jr. with Makari Moore. So it was basically Amari Witherspoon playing the 5. So 1 through 5, he can do it all. Probably won't do it all in games, but 1 through 4, I think you could see him playing. And he had that offensive energy. He had that just knack for creating shots and creating opportunities and creating scoring. He finished with 10 points. 10 points on 5 of 7 shooting. He had 1 rebound, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 2 steals, a lot of defensive energy, and a lot of offensive energy as well. And it wasn't all like chaos points. We used to talk about the Zach Austin chaos points coming on rebounds and putbacks and transition and all that. And I think Amari Witherspoon can do that, but I think he was also, you wouldn't really run sets for Zach Austin last year, unless it was setting up a 3. I think you can run sets for Amari Witherspoon and he can score, whether he's going off a pick and roll or a lob or, dumping it, letting him drive, pull up Jay. I think he could do a lot of things. And I think he's probably the guy, if you go to the Pitt Johnstown game next Monday night, the exhibition game, I would bet he'll be the guy that you walk out of there most excited about. And he's a guy that I think Amari Witherspoon is a player that you're going to be excited about walking out of, a lot of Pitt games. You're going to be talking about Amari Witherspoon, that dude can play. He can do some stuff. I think he's just going to keep getting better and better, and it's going to be exciting to watch him all season long. Other quick notes, Noyes Indrusitis, I think, started slow, but ended up finishing pretty well. He scored 11 points, 4 of 12 from the floor, but he was playing pretty well from, over the final 10 minutes of the game. I think you see a little bit of potential there, maybe a little more shot creation than I expected with Noyes Indrusitis. Roman Cialepa, we could do a whole episode on him. He looked tentative, but I don't think that's going to last. He looks intimidating on the court. I don't think many people are going to want to take a charge against him. And if they do, they'll only do it once. And then you'll get out of the way because the bull is coming through. The Australian bull or something like that. He is a bull in the china shop, and he's going to have games where he fouls out. He only had 2 fouls in this game. He played 20 minutes. I think as he gets more comfortable and gets more aggressive, Jeff Capel was saying they had to explain to him how to sub in and how to, box out on the free throws and stuff like that. Like, as he gets more comfortable and gets more aggressive, I think you're going to see that physical presence unleashed because he can run the court. I think he can finish in transition. I think you can, run pick and rolls with him. They were giving him the ball at the top of the key a lot. I think he can run some of those dribble handoff plays. There's a lot that I think Roman Cialepa can do and will do for this team. He just looked a little tentative out there on Sunday. Brandon Cummings, I'm just kind of going through the roster now, going down the box score here and looking at these guys. Brandon Cummings, I feel like forced some shots. There were a few shots that he took that I was like, yo, dude, that's what last year's team would do. This year's team is not good enough offensively to be able to do those things. So don't take those shots. Don't dribble in place for 7 or 8 seconds and then just jack a shot up. And he only did it a couple times. Like, I'm not going to say he was doing this like nonstop, but he needs to understand the team he's on, and it's not last year's team. He can't play like last year's team. Cameron Corrin and Papa Amadou Kanti split the minutes at center for the most part. They did play together for, I think, 3 or 4 rotations, 3 or 4 substitutions. Pitt was -6 on those 4 substitutions, 4 rotations with Conte and Cam Corrin on the court together. It's just not something I want to see happen very often. I don't know if Jeff Capel really wants to see it, but he shouldn't. I fail to see the upside. Like, put Roman Cialepa out there. If he's not available to play the 4, put Barry Dunning Jr. in that spot. Put Omari Witherspoon in that spot. Find somebody else who can play there. Play 4 guards. Like, whatever you want to do. I just think outside of maybe, very specific matchups, I just don't see the upside in using 2 centers. But that's just me. And again, that's after one exhibition game. Who else? Makari Moore, I thought, acquitted himself nicely. He was +9 in his 12 minutes of play, 2 of 4 from the floor. He made a 3 on 2 attempts. He had 6 points total, 1 of 2 from the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds, 2 assists. That might be your backup point guard right now. Although I think they've got a number of guys who could do it. Makari Moore could do it. Amari Witherspoon could do it. Brandon Cummings could do it. They got a bunch of guys that they can use if they want to take or have to take DeMarco Minor off the court. So I think there's some ways you can mix and match there. Is there anybody? I think I talked about everybody. But just some general thoughts. Overall, they look like about what I expected them to look like. Definitely more physical than last year. I think better defensively than last year. And I think they will be a better rebounding team than last year, even though they didn't really show it against Providence. So we'll get another look at them on Monday night against Pitt Johnstown at the Peterson Event Center. Another exhibition game before the regular season starts. So we have that to look forward to as well. All right, don't forget to get your questions in for the mailbag on Friday, and also don't forget we'll have our live stream tonight at 8:30 p.m. Jim and I will be talking about the Syracuse game, NC State, Pitt Providence. I don't know if Jim caught it, but I will fill him in on all of the details. And everything else, we'll talk about Pitt sports here on the live Panther-Lair show at 8:30 p.m. this evening. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. And I think that's about it. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope you've had a great week so far. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll talk to you tonight for the live stream, and then we'll be back again with another Morning Pitt tomorrow right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.